You know, she put yourself in
Hanson? Yeah.
Hey, good morning, everyone. I show 11 o'clock, so I will go ahead and call to order our VASC meeting for this morning. Jennifer Box is not here today. I think Madeline is helping us out this morning, so would you please do a roll call, Madeline?
Chair Mendoza,
Present?
Regent Johnston,
Here.
and Regent Parasker.
Here.
And Crystal Peterbach,
Here.
Rusty Monholland,
It's coming.
Jen Bonzaraki,
Present.
Sam Christie Dangermond.
Here. Thank you. Just want to remind all meeting attendees that we are being recorded and information will be recorded in our meeting minutes. Before we begin, I'd like to make an addition to the agenda. I'd like to request a modification. The University of Kansas has two programs, a Bachelor of Arts and Bachelor of General Studies in Health and Society, and a Professional Science Master's degree in Environmental Geology, which were inadvertently left off of today's agenda, but included on the full board agenda. Both programs have a second reading at today's, had a second reading at today's Council of Chief Academic Affairs meeting and were approved unanimously. The Council of Presidents also unanimously approved the programs earlier today. I would entertain a motion to add these programs to the agenda for consideration under board consent items. Do I have a motion for that?
So moved.
Second? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's a little funny with the three-person show here, right? The motion passes. All right, so our next order of business is to approve minutes from the September 4th VASC meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
Moved.
And,
Second.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Minutes are approved. So we will move on to consideration of items for the board consent agenda for today. There are two items under this agenda. First is Rocky Vista University Degree Granting Authority. Crystal Pudavar will present the item, and this is a follow-up from our last meeting. So, Crystal?
Hi, good morning. Yes, this is a follow-up from the December 4th VASC meeting where there were concerns raised about the potential shortage of clinical placements. As requested by the committee, we contacted Wichita State University and KU Med, who both confirmed that there are clinical availability challenges in Kansas. And while we acknowledge and understand those concerns, they are a conversation separate from the Rocky Vista University's request for a certificate of approval. Program need or clinical placement availability are not part of the statute or regulation requirements. Rather, the Act prohibits an institution from establishing physical presence in Kansas without obtaining a certificate of approval from the board. In Rocky Vista University's case, the clinical placements in Kansas trigger physical presence as defined by KSA 7432.163J. This brings Rocky Vista within the scope of the Act and thus the requirements of a certificate of approval. The statute further says that the board shall issue a certificate of approval when the board is satisfied that the institution meets minimum requirements and standards established by the Act and the rules and regulations adopted pursuant to the Act. Those minimum requirements are established under KSA 7432.169 and KAR 8828.2. Upon staff review of the submitted documentation, Rocky Vista University appears to meet the minimum requirements and therefore issuance of a certificate of approval is recommended.
Questions about that? Questions, further discussion?
Regent Mendoza, I'd just like to say, because I was the one that brought that concern forth, I completely understand the fact that it's statutorial, but I do think that it still remains a concern, is something that Rusty and I talked about, obviously is not for this body apparently to look at as it is in statute. But for me,
Yeah.
disappointing. So
I think it could be a consideration. It's something that would have to be considered more in a legislative request for a statute amendment rather than associated with a request for approval under the current statute.
I appreciate that information and it makes it clear to me. So thank
And
you.
if it became something you wanted to pursue and you would direct us to gather more information or data as part of a, potential legislative ask, or at least sharing information with the legislature, that's something I think the board should at least consider.
Is it appropriate if I ask the provost what they think about how we should move
I
forward?
think it's wholly appropriate.
I first want to say we appreciate that you brought this forward as a concern and are acting on behalf of our institutions. At Wichita State, it is a concern for us. We struggle to find clinical placements already with the programs in existence that are seeking clinical placements. So adding another institution vying for those same clinical placements will put an additional burden on our degree programs.
I would also add and I'm right now speaking for the Med Center, particularly, but I'd echo that point. Clinical placements are very challenged. Also, depending on pay for preceptors, that can create some possibly unintended challenges or competition. And I know that Robert Klein, my colleague at the Med Center, is quite concerned about that. So I would just note that I know that it's highly problematic for KU Med Center.
Just echoing from K-State's perspective, echo Kansas and Wichita State, we have a PA program, similar concerns as well.
This is Robert Klein. I think folks have already summarized my thoughts. Clinical placements are really, really difficult to come by, largely asking physicians and health professionals to take time away to provide education, and there are a limited number, and this is a very serious problem for us in terms of physician placement, but also in our other programs.
I will say also that it does have potential implications for accreditation of our programs.
I think the statute puts the board in a no-win situation, where on one hand, the board is charged with ensuring that you don't have too much duplication of programming. In other words, if any of us were coming up with proposals that then have a negative impact on one another, that's something this board has the authority to look at, examine, and make decisions about, and do what's in the best interest of all of our institutions in the state of Kansas. But this statute seems to prevent that in this case. So I concur with everything all of my colleagues have said.
As do I. And appreciate your asking.
Is there a way then, Rusty, that we could, obviously through another channel, at least advocate for a change, a statutorial change? Regent Mendoza, I don't know if that's.
Would you allow me to have some internal conversations with our President Flanders and with Chief of Staff Oliver, and see what their thoughts are? I think we do have some concerns about helping the public institutions that we govern, doing all we can to ensure their viability. But I'm not sure how hard we would want to push, the board would want to push to make this kind of change. So if you are agreeable, I will see about some internal conversations and see where that might lead us, and I'll report back.
Thank you so much. I think it's important.
So I want all of the provosts to know that we hear your concerns and we understand that this is something that we need to look into a little bit further. However, the committee this morning is to determine if we approve Rocky Vista University's degree granting authority, and based on the requirements and state statute, that's what's before us this morning. So I would make a motion to approve this item.
I can second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Motion passes. Moving on to our next item. I previously mentioned the degree programs coming from the University of Kansas, the Bachelor of Arts and Bachelor of General Studies in Health and Society, and Professional Science Master's degree in Environmental Geology. Provost Mickelmeyer?
Thank you. Just to give you a little background here on the BA and BGS in Health and Society, KU's Department of Sociology is proposing an interdisciplinary health and society program. The degree focuses on the understanding of the social context of health, since the majority of health factors are related to social and economic issues, health behaviors, and the physical environment. Program graduates will be ready for employment and for further training in health services research, healthcare management administration, public health, or health policy, and often pursue careers in the healthcare and health insurance fields in non-clinical positions and in clinical positions with further education. The degree is designed to be completed in 120 credit hours, and we have program representatives available to answer any questions if you so desire. So if our program reps want to come online, that would be great. Thank you. So any questions we can answer for you, particularly on this program? They always love it when you don't ask questions. Okay, thanks. All right, well then I'll move to the, or wait. Is it consent? Okay,
They'll have to make the motion.
okay.
Individually or?
You want them?
I think you can approve them collectively.
Okay, so then I will go on to the Professional Science Master's in Environmental Geology. KU offers a Professional Science Master's degree in Applied Science with a concentration in Environmental Geology and Environmental Assessment. The Department of Geology is proposing to elevate the Environmental Geology concentration to a major. A degree in environmental geology better aligns with workforce and professional licensure expectations of a title degree in geology and more accurately reflects the program curriculum. Since its inception 5 years ago, the environmental geology concentration has been very successful with more than 80 enrolled students. The change would allow for more focused program marketing and enable greater career advancement of its graduates. And we have program representatives here as well, if you have any questions.
Questions?
Other graduates, sorry, I have a question on understanding. Are the graduates who, have gone through a similar program or degree found a career within Kansas universities? Is there, Kansas employers? Is there a push from employers to identify a specific program? Is this marketing related push, or is it employability related ask?
So let me ask if Marcia Schulmeister's on the line for this, and if not, I will give my best answer. Marcia, are
Yes.
you there?
Hi, Dr. Brickelmeyer, I'm here.
Great.
And I think I understood the question. This is a degree that reaches non-traditional adult learners who are working in industry. Many of them never finished a bachelor's degree in hydrogeology or in environmental geology. They may have been in the oil and gas industry, for example, and they see that there are employment opportunities in environmental and they're retooling. So we've had several students who've come out of the oil and gas industry, having worked as geologists, who have chosen to move into careers, say at EPA or KDHE or within the state of Kansas. So in that regard, then it's not really an employer-driven directly, but more indirectly. The students, I think, recognize the opportunities and choose to come to us on their own accord. Having said that, many environmental companies offer to pay the tuition of students who complete the program through us, maybe buy 1 or 2 courses a semester. So we do see a lot of endorsement from our industry partners in that way.
Okay.
I hope that answers the question.
That absolutely answers the question.
Thank you.
And I just also note, for KU particularly, and I know this is true of many of our campuses, or many of our institutions, but Marcia, I'm sure you can confirm, and I know you well know, oil, gas, and water are critical to Kansas, and so I think we're addressing a state need in that regard.
I could
Thank you.
add that one of the goals of this program is to create more licensed geologists. And a lot of those folks come into the program seeking the proper credential to allow them to sit for the license exam here in Kansas. That's 30 credit hours of geology. So we help them get to that point too.
That's a smart move. Right, thank you very much, Marcia.
Thank you, Marcia. Did you hear Regent say that it's a smart move? So let your colleagues know that.
You made my day. Thank you.
All right, any other questions or concerns?
No.
Okay, so I would entertain the motion to approve both the Bachelor of Arts and Bachelor of General Studies in Health and Society and the Professional Science Master's Degree in Environmental Geology.
I will.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion passes. All right, moving on to other matters. I think we have several academic affairs updates this morning, and we will start with Dr. Monholland in the first 15 initiative.
Probably do this from memory since I've done it several times already, but thank you, Regent Mendoza. As you are aware, the Board of Regents have made the expansion of dual and concurrent enrollment to more Kansas high school students a top priority for academic year 2025. And we believe the first 15 will help us achieve that goal. The first 15, which is the kind of the working title we're using, refers to 15 credits, 5 college level courses that a student, high school student can take, and that is offered to them at no cost to the student. We believe there's a lot of benefits, a lot of upside to this. We think it can help improve our college going rate, which needs help right now. It addresses it will help us serve more underrepresented students, especially students who simply do not have the means to take a dual or concurrent enrollment course. And we think it will encourage, inspire a lot of students who perhaps never considered college or thought it was beyond their reach. If we can help them find success at that point in their career, studies have shown that it's been a very good indicator of enrollment in college and subsequent post-secondary success. We've established a work group to look at the challenge we've been given and to make recommendations for development and implementation of the first 15 to Dr. Flanders by the 1st of May. My team, the academic affairs team, will staff and support the work of the group. The first 15, as I said, are 5 early college courses offered to high school students at no cost to them. We've been tasked with the work group 8 specific things. 1, recommend the courses that comprise the first 15. Recommend a funding framework that offers students the first 15 courses at no cost to them. Recommend a standardized dual and concurrent enrollment framework that will apply to all districts and all early college providers that are delivering the first 15. Review student enrollment requirements to ensure that early college programs are offered to all students who can benefit from these courses. ensure every high school in Kansas with students who can benefit has access to a provider of the first 15. We will need to review and revise as necessary our current policy on dual and concurrent enrollment to facilitate the implementation of the first 15 statewide. We've been asked to assess the cost and benefits of requiring all dual and concurrent enrollment providers to be accredited by the National Alliance of Concurrent Enrollment Partnerships, or NACEP. And as I mentioned previously, we have been asked to complete these tasks no later than May 1st, 2025. We held our first meeting yesterday. I think we all came to the realization that we are going to have to meet multiple times in each month over the next 4 or 5 months to complete the work. But there seemed to be some optimism and good cheer that we could be successful in that regard. We took as our first task was to develop the first 15 courses. We had a couple of approaches we could have taken. The first would be just simply 5 courses. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No variation from that. All dual first 15 providers would offer those. And that has some values, some virtues, but we also thought it's limiting to some students. And for me personally, I think the biggest drawback to that is we would have to select one mathematics course. When we have worked so hard and done so much, made so much progress around math pathways, and that would seem to just undermine all that work if we use that as, have a default to college algebra, say, for example. So what we settled on was let's use our system-wide general education framework, the various buckets, and let's use that as the mechanism in which we identify the first 15. So we created, listed the 5 buckets you see here. You will notice there is a bucket missing or not included, and that would be the natural and physical sciences. We did not remove it lightly. We talked long and hard about it. I think ultimately our decision was based upon the difficulty of finding instructors in the high school with the qualifications to offer those courses. It also creates some administrative concerns because of the differing credit hour assigned to lab and many science courses. So what we arrived at is there are 11 courses that will be designated as first 15 in each of those categories. One question we didn't answer yesterday, and I think we will need to take up, are students, can they take only one course from each of the 5 buckets? Or could they say, take both halves of the US survey, which a lot of students would, and then, 3 courses from elsewhere? So we'll have to address that. There are, as I heard from my colleagues in SCOCO this morning, there are a lot of things that we did discuss and the provost brought up to us. We understand we have to find a way to fund this and create some kind of framework. But there were a number of things we hadn't considered that we've jotted down and will use to help guide our conversations as we move forward. Last night I sent to all the presidents and the provosts a memorandum that we've been working on internally to try to address some questions about our various initiatives, MAP Pathways, our English initiatives, our performance agreements, and the first 15. So let me just briefly pull a couple of those out just to get it into the public record. Let me state unequivocally our intention to develop and implement this initiative collaboratively with all system institutions. It's our expectation that each member of the work group will communicate not only with their own campus or organization, but also will communicate with among and up through the sectors they represent. I think it's pretty clear we're going to have to make some revisions to our current policy, but we're not looking to have a wholesale revision and upheaval of dual and concurrent enrollment. It's simply to make those revisions that will be necessary to facilitate the expansion of early college opportunities. I don't know how to say this any more clearly, but please understand this is not a mandate or a directive. The board is not requiring any institution to participate in this. Having said that, though, I will point out that we do have a chapter in or a section in our policy in chapter 3 that deals with service areas. And as part of the first 15, if an institution is unable or unwilling to offer the first 15, the board may allow another provider to come into that service area to offer those first 15 courses to the institutions, the schools in that service area. So I don't, I have no delusions about the difficulty of what we've been asked to do. I think we had a really good first meeting yesterday. We did, I think, begin to build a little bit of rapport, a willingness. There was great willingness to speak openly and frankly and listen to what everyone said. And I think that bodes well for our work as we push further into more challenging and difficult issues. So I'll be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Regent Mendoza, I did have a couple questions. First, I thank you to the committee because I know this is hard work, but it really is. I think there's a lot of momentum in terms of making sure that we collaborate and do this for Kansas and do this for our students. My question is on the CEP agreements. So would this do away with the CEP agreements, or the first 15 would just be sort of an expansion of that CEP agreement that the schools have with the school districts?
I think we're envisioning it as kind of a separate piece of that larger, not sure, I can't come up with the right analogy right now, but it's not going to replace that, but it would run alongside the
So
current
just
CEP.
kind of expanded, but they would still have to have those CEP agreements with each school district, which may look different than obviously the first 15.
Yes. There are, and I think sometimes when you first imagine something, oh, we just need to do this, this, and this. And we do have to do this, this, and this, but we also have to do that and this and the other thing as well. So there's a lot of work in front of us right now.
Thank you.
Questions? When this topic first came up, I had a conversation with the academic affairs team, and I believe we determined this work has been going on for years, and we haven't quite ever come to a resolution or a way to provide access to more students, right? So I believe that this is, as we work to increasing access for students across the state, I think this is one of the first, not first, but one of the many ways we can reach more students. And I appreciate the work the committee has taken on, and I appreciate them realizing it's gonna take several meetings and being willing to do that, because I think it's gonna be better for our students across the state overall, so.
And for what it's worth, I listened to the State Board of Education meeting last week, and there were strong expressions of support for what we're doing. You know, I think I heard something to the effect that they hope KBOR will get it done this time, or something to that. So I took that as encouragement and as indication that you know, we're doing the right thing. We just need to figure out how to make it work.
And just to kind of go back to what you said earlier, this is a collaborative effort, and we want to work together to see how we can make this happen. But I appreciate that update.
Thank you.
Other questions before we move on? Okay. Next item on our agenda is an update on math pathways and English initiatives from Jen Bondracky. Dr. Bondracky.
Thank you so much. We'll have Madeline pull up the slides. This will be a really brief update on math pathways and the English initiatives. The update will include situating our fall work within the broader timeline, reviewing the KBOR-sponsored fall professional development activities, and then outlining what the next steps in the initiative will be for spring. So taking a look here at slide 2, again, nope, you can go back for me, Madeline. Yeah, that'd be great. So we'll situate our work this fall semester in the broader context. You'll see that the Board of Regents approved the Math Pathways policy in May of 2023. And since then, we've worked very systematically to build a solid foundation and achieve key milestones. For example, during the last academic year, our member institutions revised learning outcomes for the 3 Gateway math courses, selected appropriate Gateway courses for every program of study, and developed system-wide placement measures for all 3 Gateway courses. That leads us to this fall semester, where our efforts have focused on delivering the KBOR-sponsored professional development, providing faculty and staff with training and tools needed to advance the next phase of the process. Thank you. So just to note that this level of system-wide change requires engagement and support from all areas of the campus community. So the visual on this slide illustrates the various stakeholders that came together to form a cohesive whole. And each stakeholder plays a critical role in the success of this initiative. This fall semester, professional development sessions were provided to all the stakeholders represented on the pie chart, ensuring that they have the tools and the knowledge needed to effectively contribute to the implementation of math pathways. We can go ahead and advance. I just wanted to briefly highlight some of the topics covered during the professional development, specifically for our math faculty. As you can see, we really offered sessions to focus on both breadth and depth, equipping faculty with the knowledge and tools necessary to make informed curricular decisions in the next step of the process. On the next slide, we have some topics covered from our executive implementation teams. And just as a reminder, establishing these EITs was a deliberate strategy aimed at empowering institutions to create dedicated teams that are responsible for these transformative changes on our campuses. By fostering this collaboration and shared ownership, this approach ensured that the necessary expertise and leadership were in place to guide the process effectively. Each institution formed a team of up to 5 individuals, and I'm particularly excited to share with you that all 32 provosts or a designee served on those committees for us, underscoring the commitment of academic leadership to this critical work. The EIT sessions were very thoughtfully designed to equip our campus leaders with the knowledge and tools needed to drive meaningful change. Topics ranged from best practices and change management and policy navigation to institutional decision-making processes, ensuring that participants were prepared to address both the strategic and the operational challenges that they would face. This intentional focus on professional development was pivotal in building capacity and aligning efforts across the system. And so we'll remain on this slide, Madeline. The approach to the professional development series was also designed to pair expertise within a Kansas institution, faculty member, or graduate with national experts. So the intentional pairing highlighted the impactful work already being done locally in Math Pathways while incorporating broader national perspectives. And so I would like to extend my gratitude to the provost and presidents for sharing their talented faculty and staff with us. We're really fortunate to already have a wealth of knowledge within the state. Could you go back, Madeline? I don't think we were on the right slide for that one. So here's the list of the institutions that provided content expertise in Math Pathways. So really pleased with that. Okay, now we can advance. This slide represents the intentional pairing of the Kansas expert with the national expert. And so here's a list of some of the national experts that have joined in on the conversation. Many of these national experts are already familiar to our Kansas faculty through conferences, national conferences, or other ongoing collaborations. And I would also like to emphasize the involvement of numerous KBOR staff from outside of academic affairs in these professional development series. Their participation underscores this is really cross-divisional work, and it demonstrates the comprehensive support that the KBOR staff provides to the institutions. Okay, we can advance. If you can see this far away, and my apologies because I cannot, this table summarizes the number of institutions and individuals who attended each professional development session held throughout the fall semester. And as you can see, we're really pleased with that high level of engagement, over 1,200 individuals across those sessions. Once again, this level of participation would not have been possible without the steadfast support of our institutional leaders. So a special thanks to those leaders in the room and joining us virtually for their support. We can go ahead and advance. So thinking about the next step, our efforts since the policy approval in May 2023 have been about building a strong and solid foundation. Each component that we've talked about, policy development, placement decisions, gateway course selection, all those have contributed to this solid base. As we move into spring 2025, it's time to pass the baton to our KBOR institutions. Per the performance agreements, the focus will now shift to designing the co-requisite support sections and gateway math courses if needed. While the fall professional development sessions have equipped institutions to move forward independently, I just really want to underscore that KBOR staff will remain actively engaged in providing support. And to briefly highlight what this support will look like, we do have a final math faculty professional development session coming up in January, and it's going to focus on assessing co-requisite programs. There will be a series of spring task force meetings to address any emerging issues as institutions begin to work independently. We will hold a March 28th EIT meeting to help institutions prepare for their performance agreements due in early summer. We have a dedicated website with professional development resources that faculty members can access at any time. We also have a dedicated FAQ website, and I just want to highlight that the FAQs, there's 40 questions on there right now. These were developed collaboratively by faculty and staff who serve on the task force, and we continuously reevaluate adding questions to that list. We will also have a data conference in the spring with the DRP team from KBOR, and they're going to focus on some program assessment items for institutions to consider. And then lastly, there's also peer support opportunities where faculty and staff from current KBOR institutions who are a little bit ahead of the curve have volunteered to assist their colleagues who are working on timely completion of the work. So these resources and continued collaboration will ensure that institutions are well prepared to not only implement, but also sustain Math Pathways moving forward. And then just briefly on this last slide, we'll touch on English initiatives. They've followed a very similar approach. As you know, BASC recently approved the placement measures for the English Gateway courses without the co-requisite support, and professional development for English faculty members is currently underway. Same philosophical approach to the professional development with English faculty, where we're balancing state leaders with that content expertise. to share their knowledge and equip faculty with our external experts. Institutions including KU, Washburn, and Butler Community College led the first session with their content expertise. The first professional development session took place on November 8th, and the English sessions will conclude by April 4th. Again, for the English initiative, we have a comprehensive subpage off the main KBOR website that's been developed that will specifically support our English faculty members. So I stand for questions from the regents.
Good work.
There's a lot of information, obviously.
Yes.
But did we identify the goals that we are moving towards for all these initiatives? And are we doing a more smart approach, like measurable, approach for the strategies that we are taking to achieve that goal?
Yeah, so I would say that we've been guided by the policy that the board developed and approved, and we've been following the policy in terms of what it outlined for those student success initiatives. And as we work with our national experts like the Dana Center and Complete College America, they're definitely encouraging us to use SMART goals in our assessment. And then I'll defer to VP Mulholland to add to that.
This work also is, laid out in each institution's performance agreement too. The institutions have made a really concerted effort to achieving the different milestones, getting things implemented at various stages, because there is some money at risk here, and I think that's been helpful as well. I don't think we've developed target metrics, for example, of, okay, how much have we improved the gateway course completion rate yet? But certainly we don't have targets, but that's something we will track so that we can begin to see we were at this point.
Correct.
And the implementation of the co-requisite model led to an increase here. Hopefully not a decrease there, I don't believe it will, but how much of an increase? And that kind of information, I think, from all institutions and then system-wide, will give us the tools we need to help refine this a little bit. There are still some concerns among the institutions, and understandably so, about a floor. How far down can we go to include a student in the co-rec model? Right now, what we're advising is you can go quite a ways down. Both our state data, national data indicates that students who seem wholly unprepared for post-secondary work with the right supports in place succeed at a much higher level through the co-rec model than they did or would have through a traditional prerequisite remedial education model. So, but that will, as we work through that data will help us refine this, begin to develop perhaps other interventions, other approaches that can help students all along the spectrum.
So I think we've identified the problem statement for sure. We all understand where the problem statement lies. And we are working towards achieving better results. But my guidance is, do we know where each of the institutes are starting as a base point and then how we are growing?
Yes.
And if we can identify those in a SMART goal, process, then we can understand we are going in the.
We actually have some data already. A number of our institutions have implemented co-requisite models and have been doing it for some time. And that data is showing the results that we want. So it provides the encouragement and continued inspiration for us to make sure it's implemented and implemented with fidelity across the entire system.
And if I'm understanding this correctly, we have high acceptance rate for pretty much all of our universities. And are we saying that during accepting a particular student, even if they are showing below, average or minimum math capabilities, we are able to open up our university for them. And so that's resulting in poorer graduations. Just putting it in a very simple way, but is
Well,
that what?
It is, but there are, I think, a number of factors at work here. Many students, high school students, forego a mathematics class in their
Mhm.
senior year. So by the time they start as a freshman, it could well be close to a year and a half or 2 years since they've exercised any mathematics muscles. And I've used this example before. I once took one of those standardized tests just 10 years or so ago. I placed in the lowest level of developmental education. And it's not because this joke used to work when I was in Missouri, that I'm a product of the Kansas public school system. So I don't use that one anymore. But the point is, it's not that I don't know how to do algebra. I just have forgotten a lot of stuff. It's been 20, 25 years. And I feel very confident that if I had to do this, if you give me the textbook and kind of support in a few weeks or so, I'd be back up to speed. Well, I think the same thing holds true for many high school students. They haven't done mathematics for a long time, or they struggled with a particular aspect of algebra or whatever mathematics class they were in. So if we can kind of pinpoint the problem, why do we send them to a non-credit bearing course that they have to pay for when all they need is the refresher course, some additional supports that can help them move forward and complete the gateway course. The goal is not to get them to complete a remedial course. The goal is to get them to complete a gateway course so that they can keep moving forward and earn a credential. So I feel very confident and very excited about the direction we're going and what things will look like in a few years.
Not to sideline too much of this conversation, but you hit the nail on the head in the sense that I come from Indian education, especially for my, school education. We started with math, we ended with math. I started, elementary school, I had math. 10th grade or 12th, I had math. There is no option of, excusing myself from math, whether I like it or not, or science is the same and social studies is the same. But I think having that gap is something that we need to identify, maybe even in the school system, where how do we refresh them back into the memory, because maybe they've already completed that course and they're 2 years into not touching math anymore, but then university is looking at a different approach. But yeah.
And remember, the other part of Math Pathways is aligning mathematics content and knowledge with programs of study. And I've seen the results of that many students, you've heard or seen the cartoons or the jokes, 57 years and still haven't used algebra yet, and so students sometimes question the relevance of, the quadratic formula or factoring or whatever. But maybe in contemporary math or statistics, depending on the field they're entering, they begin to see the relevance of this math knowledge they are acquiring. And so I think that has a tremendous impact. College algebra was designed to prepare students for calculus. You know how many students, with the percentage of students who take college algebra go on to take calculus? 10%. So, there are a lot of reasons for why we're doing this. And I think when we're sitting here in 2 or 3 years, we're going to see really impressive results and growth.
and I see this coming from the K-12 world as, you know, we support our students and we scaffold and we do things necessary to help them be successful. And to me, this is very similar to that. We're supporting our students to be successful in math. And I was one of those that had to take the elementary math and intermediate math before I took college algebra, but that didn't mean I couldn't be successful in other areas and I didn't have strengths in other areas. I just needed that extra support in math. So this has been going on since, or this work has been ongoing since I started on the board, and I have seen it develop, and it's become a really, I don't want to say it's a good thing for our students. It's going to be a successful initiative. I know we're still working through a lot of those things, but I do feel like it's a support for our students and needed. So I appreciate the work that's gone into this.
Regent Mendoza, I could just say one thing too. I too definitely appreciate the work. I think that many times too, you guys know the statistics better than I do, but when you look at the Lumina Foundation, the Gates Foundation, students that make it through the developmental courses hardly ever make it to the Gateway courses. Less than 1% actually graduate. It doesn't work. You know, it's out there. And so I definitely appreciate it. I think it's specifically hard on our non-traditional students, like you said, that come back into higher education or start higher education. And if they have to take a full year and pay for it of non-credit bearing courses that do not count towards graduation, that literally is the difference between going back to school and not going back to school. So I think anything that we can do to make sure that we're removing those hurdles is super, super important. And the other thing I wanted to say is I really appreciate the alignment of the initiatives, and maybe with the performance report, as you've already, as those sort of evolve, we can implement some of those data points in there and say, okay, this is where we were, this is where we are now. And I think that would work well in terms of how we've already tried to pull together, you know, the math pathways, the gen ed, you know, concurrent. I think if we pull that all together in the performance report, that can answer, which I think was a great question, Regent Parasker, possibly her question about, you know, and maybe make it easier for everybody if we pull it together, you know, and just align all these things in that direction.
Thank you. And to your point on performance agreements, that's next on our agenda.
You're stealing
so-
my thunder.
Madeline's gonna pull up a PowerPoint. I'm gonna try not to repeat too much of what Jen said, because as you know, Math Pathways and the English initiatives are all part of the AY 2024 academic year, 2024 through 2026 performance agreements. And so go ahead and go to the next one, please. This next slide is gonna show you the 5 projects that that make up the performance agreements. And the newer regent may not know that before we moved to a projects-based model, we used to just look at metrics and compare data year to year for each institution to a baseline set of data. And those were for previous years. And we wanted to see improvement each year for each metric. And for various reasons, for this 3-year period, 24 through 26, we wanted to move to a projects-based model to provide some incentive for institutions to move to these promising practices. So you can see each one of the components makes up 20%. We include the math pathways, or that is picking the appropriate math course for each academic program. The co-requisite support for both math, Gateway math courses, the 3 of them, and for English Composition 1. We're moving from the prerequisite to the co-requisite model. We are also implementing system-wide course placement measures for the 3 Gateway math courses and for English Comp 1. And then we have the institutions work on the academic degree maps. You'll probably remember from the reports that you looked at for AY 24 earlier in the semester, those 5 pieces. And you'll remember that everybody had their degree maps done by the July 1 deadline, pretty much. Go ahead and go to the next slide. But institutions are going to keep working on those degree maps each year because there will be updates to be made. Wanted to share just a little bit of what's going on, what was going on before we got here, what we're doing now, and then what we're going to be doing in the future to help institutions get to where they need to be. So as you can see, The new performance model, the projects-based model, was approved by the board in May of 2023. A part of that process is for us to set up the performance agreements, send those out to institutions, and we also send a memorandum of agreement to the presidents of each institution. They sign those and they send those back to us. That's our way of knowing they're signing on, they're agreeing to do these initiatives. And those were sent back to us in the fall semester of 2023. So some of the work that we've been doing more recently is the selection of those gateway math courses by program. That work actually started in 23, in spite of what this says. We've done a lot of work in the spring and summer of 24 on that, but it takes time to get all of those academic programs, all the faculty together to talk about and agree on a math course. Lots of programs out there. So that work took some time. And as you know, because you recently approved them, the Math Course Placement Measures Committee and we had an English Course Placement Measures Committee work on requirements for students to meet to get into the gateway courses without co-requisite support. Anybody falling under those requirements would still be able to take the gateway course, but they would just have to take the co-requisite support to help them through that. And again, the work on the degree maps continues. We're up to the third point on the timeline, the fall of 24, spring and summer of 25. Jen talked a lot about the professional development we've been doing. This is to help institutions get to where they need to be for that co-requisite support. Institutions are working on designing that, and they will continue to do so in the spring. Some institutions have already gotten there and are already doing it, which is awesome. And the institutions will continue to work on degree maps because they will need to include the general education coding for the next year, as opposed to this past year. We took that requirement, we removed that requirement because there was so much work that had to go into creating those degree maps. And then we're putting it back in for the next year. So the coding is an expectation for the degree maps for the next year. So by fall of next year, this is a part of the performance agreement. The expectation is that each institution offer at least one section of each of the gateway math courses that apply to programs on their campus. They offer at least one section of co-requisite support for each of those gateway math courses and for English Comp 1. They need to do a soft launch of the system-wide course placement measures for math and English. That just means they're going to need to place students according to those approved placement measures for those sections. And then again, the updated degree maps. That takes us up to the fall of 2026. And by then we expect full implementation of math pathways, co-requisite support, developmental education for math and English, and updated degree maps. These will also include, in addition to the general education coding for the next year, this should include the math pathways decisions as well. So the programs we're working on choosing the math courses, it takes time to get all of that through their governance processes on campus. So we need to give them time to get those courses put into the curriculum and published in the catalogs and everything like that. So this is just a kind of a bird's eye view of all the activities going on to help support what we're expecting for the performance agreements. Can you go ahead and move to the next slide? This is a look at what is expected on the report for academic year 2025. I won't read all through this, but I will leave it up there. This comes straight from the performance agreement that each institution has. So this should not be a surprise for folks at their institutions. I'm working on academic year 2025 reporting template that will include these items and will provide a little bit more specificity. We're also working on a rubric. And let's see what else. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide, Madeline. I wanted to talk just a little bit about the general education coding. This can be found on our website. This is also linked in the performance agreement, and it will be linked in the performance report template. This is just a look at what that coding is supposed to look like. So each of the buckets has a 3-digit numeric code. You can see for English, it's 010. So what we're wanting to see is, go ahead and go to the next slide. An example looks something like this. It's really hard to see, my apologies, but if you look to that first course under the first semester, English 101, you might be able to see it in superscript up to the right is 010. That's that general education code. So we want those codes on the degree maps to help students understand, along with the legend, of course, what is this class fulfilling? How does this tie into the gen ed? So in a nutshell, that's been what has been going on with performance agreements. And I wanted to share a little bit about the expectation for the academic year 25 reports. And to your point, Regent Perisker, you know, we've moved to the project base for 24 through 26. And beyond that, we may very well go back to a data, you know, look at the metrics. Let's look and see how have we improved since before we had implemented these new things. So we still have a lot to talk about, but I think we're getting there. That concludes my update.
Any questions?
So are there courses that doesn't have that superscript?
Yeah, there are courses that aren't necessarily a part of the general education, but that may be required for the degree.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sam.
Yeah.
All right.
We left you 1 minute.
Finally, VP Monholland has a brief update on the college, Complete College America launch.
I just, Sam and Jen made reference to Brandon Protas, who we've become well acquainted with from Complete College America. Earlier this year, we became the 48th state, I believe it is, to become part of the CCA Alliance. Complete College America has been around for a number of years, I think about 14 or so now. And as its name suggests, what it's dedicated to is to help students complete college. Complete College America was one of the first national organizations to offer a very stinging critique of remedial education and how it wasn't working, how it didn't benefit students. They promoted co-requisite math pathways. They've been supportive of degree maps, guided pathways, and so forth. So we're excited about being part of this alliance. It doesn't cost us anything to be part of the alliance, which is a huge benefit. And we have this incredible resource to draw upon now. We've used some of CCA's content experts already in some of our professional development. We'll see that continuing in the years to come. On February 11th, the day before our February board meetings, we're going to have a formal launch of our joining the CCA Alliance. Folks from the CCA office, their top folks are going to come in. We've invited the governor, other key legislators to come in. There'll be a little ceremonial signing event, kind of memorializing that. But more importantly, the rest of the day then will be CCA content experts kind of helping us through a day-long workshop on various topics, various issues related to the work we're doing. We've asked, we're getting ready to open registration. Each institution can bring 5. We'll take stock if there are still spots open. We'll let institutions bring more at a later date. And certainly we hope you all, many of the regents would be able to come and participate in this as well. So we'll be sure to include you on all our communication and registration information. We think it's, I don't see this as a big deal, but Jen and I were at the CCA conference and I was walking, came off the elevator and there's this huge poster of me.
It was life size.
It was life size and it's quite jarring, but I've been involved in 3 states now joining the CCA Alliance and they thought that was a big deal. But I will say it is a big deal. It's a great resource to draw upon. And I think we'll find it very helpful and beneficial. And I hope you all can find time to attend all or at least part of the day with us.
Any questions for Dr. Monholland? All right, so the next FAST meeting is scheduled for January 2nd, 2025. But if there are no objections or any pressing issues, I would like to cancel that meeting. I think that's that's a break for most and people are with family and have other events going on. So if there are no objections.
My staff wanted to, but I said no.
Well, I want to, so. Do we need to do a vote on that? Okay, is that any objections on that committee? Okay, perfect. So our next FACTS meeting will be on January 15th, here in Topeka. If there are no other announcements to come before the committee, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Aye. Thank you. Holidays.
Oh, yeah.
Jill and Shirley, I'll just meet you by the front door.
Perfect. So yeah, Brent's gonna join and Barb's gonna join.
Oh, I'm glad because I'm like, I don't know.
Very long.